This meeting to order. Good evening. It is 7 p.m. This open meeting of the Acton Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth and the local state of emergency declared by the Acton Board of Selectmen and Board of Health due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the Board of Selectmen have suspended all public gatherings, and in accordance with the Governor's order, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The Governor's order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations and/or board/committee votes of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Acton Finance Committee is convening by Zoom, video conference via the Zoom app, as posted on the meeting agenda, town's website calendar identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We are now turning to the first item, meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right, and our first item up for the agenda is citizens' concerns. Not only can see. Does anyone see any hands raised? Because I don't. Okay. Moving on from that, department updates. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Good to see the committee tonight. Would it be possible for me to share my screen, Madam Chair? I have a half presentation, half talking point list that I think might be best kind of done by sharing my screen if I could try that.
Please do. Do you have permission? Is that an option for you?
It says it here. Let's see what I can do.
Go ahead.
All right, and it's going to be a few minutes because I got a few things to cover. So share screen. Ooh, there it is.
Now, when he shares screen sharing, I can't see when people raise hands, so please lightly jump in and say who you are.
So, slideshow from the beginning. Can everybody see that first slide?
I do not see your screen at all.
You don't?
No. We don't have it yet.
Huh. Okay, well, why don't I do this? Oh, okay. Share. Sorry about that. This is all...
Oh, there we go.
I got it.
This is
Wonderful.
exciting. All right, cool. So, thanks everybody. Nice to be here tonight. I was contacted by the chair and asked to kind of comment on what's new, what's going on. You know, in terms of how I look at the operations of the community, you know, what are our major revenue components? To me, I think it's really important to note that property taxes make up 92% of all general fund revenues. To that, we talk about collection rates. So if our material revenue source has a high collection rate, we tend to be in decent shape. Right now, our August 1st, 2020 tax collection rate, and I pulled a balance sheet late this afternoon a few hours ago, we're at 94.5%. We're traditionally at 97 or 98% by the end of August. Again, we see no deterioration in the tax collection rate. What we have found, and it was kind of interesting, you know, we talked to John Mangiarotti and John Benson about it. It's kind of interesting to us that if you look at collection rates as of kind of the end of July, which is right around August 1st, the last 3 fiscal years, we've been right under 80%. And then that squares up to about 98% by the end of August. It's a little bit of a phenomenon. Brian McMullen and I have looked into it. There's several reasons for it. We have a good number of real estate transactions that close in the July-August time period. Usually people with kids that move, they want to close in July and August. So we'll have some escrows sitting in the attorney's hands. That takes a little bit of time to get to us. In the past, maybe not so much now, we've had a good amount of citizens that travel in July and August, in which case the town is paid later. As August 1st was on a Saturday, this year's due date was Monday, August 3rd, which is 2 days later than usual. Both August 1st of 18 and 19 were both weekdays. So there's actually a couple extra days to pay. And also, what happens is with the August 1st pay date and all of the quarters, it can take 7 to 10 days for us to process all of the mail. Again, this morning when I went into the office, there was a stack or a tray, probably 50, 75 envelopes in there, which were tax bills. So for some reason, that August 1st due date seems to slide into the end of August. But right now, I can report with recent reports as of today, they're at 94.5%. Again, we see no deterioration in the property tax collection rate. The chair had asked me to comment on state aid. So from a high level, state aid makes up about 1.5% of our general fund revenues from an ALG perspective. The governor recently signed a 3-month budget to fund municipalities at FY20 level for 3 months. And I think the most important thing to myself and John Mangiarotti is that if you look at it, the administration and finance chief came out and said the governor and legislature are committed to no less than level funding of unrestricted governmental aid and Chapter 70 education aid as a baseline amount for FY21. So that is a huge commitment, or at least from the leadership. But that's what I know really about state aid. If you look at it, again, it's about a 1.5% of all revenues. So the next thing I wanted to run by is an update for the committee. I put out a memo to John Mangiarotti and the Board of Selectmen. It's a once-in-a-year quick recap of the year. Certainly, the town's operations were impacted, yet the town's finances delivered strong results. As the committee knows, given the revenue uncertainties that became apparent in the late winter and early spring, the town manager implemented a spending and hiring freeze, which resulted in a significant budget turnback. So on the expense side of the general fund, the municipal operating budget returned about $1.4 million in budget turnback. Based on our operating budget just south of $36 million, this represents a 3.8% turnback. In terms of a little thumb sketch of some of the highlights, most of these are a function of unfilled positions, but in the finance department, we had some prepayment discounts. We also had an unfilled position. DPW and engineering had an unfilled position. They also returned close to $200,000 in unspent snow and ice funds. Memorial Library had some unexpended salaries. Public health and nursing, while they had and have their hands full, they also had some budget allotments for services like occupational therapy and different therapies, which are sort of contracted out for services to our citizens. A lot of those weren't needed because we weren't kind of allowed to do it. Natural resources. So had to turn back as well for some unexpended salaries. So the theme there a little bit is unexpended salaries, but those were the major drivers in the $1.4 million general fund expense turn back. On the revenue side, again, we're talking about FY20. We had a 99.2% collection rate. Now, the reality of it is our norm is about 99.5. Now, while 0.3% is nothing to sneeze at, it represents about $280,000. So, our receivable is up close to $250,000. It's not at a flashover point, but our collection rate is down a couple of clicks. But the 99.2 as of June 30th is excellent, and it's a very strong factor in our AAA bond rating. In FY20, we received all our state aid. The last part I wanted to comment on in the memo, or I did comment on, was local receipts. We budgeted $5.562 million in local receipts. We actually took in $5,563,704. We made our local receipt mark by $1,700. No real surprises in there to some of the people that were back, maybe Steve Noon, Mike, I don't know, back in 08 or 09. Our motor vehicle excise actual was $3.454 million. We beat the budget by $25,000. That $3.4 million might be a high watermark as we move forward, but we had positives in the motor vehicle excise. We had a $66,000 negative in fees and licenses. We had a $6,000 negative in meals tax. Penalties and interest and fines, a $4,000 negative. Investment income, we beat by $12,000. And those are the kind of the key. But from my perspective, we barely hit the number. So, that being said, we did make our local receipt number. So that's always a good thing. So I have to run one other thing by you that came out this afternoon. When we were rolling through the April, May, June time frame, as you know, the state was juggling legislative acts on deficit spending, on free cash certifications. Well, we took advantage of a couple of things, and let me kind of show you what we did. And to do it, I sort of have to walk you through a free cash primer. As the committee knows, free cash is an annual calculation. Well, our last free cash calculation was as of July 1 or June 30th, 2019. Technically, a year later, that usually goes to zero. However, the Department of Revenue allowed you to use your prior year certification if you weren't going to make it to town meeting by June 30th. Now, again, I'm bringing everybody back a little bit, but as you know, in the April-May timeframe, it was rather dicey on whether we would even make it to town meeting by the end of June. What was happening was the pandemic was coming right up against state accounting rules, which says you need to do something with your budget by June 30th. So they allowed an extension of kind of our pre-existing free cash if we might not make it to June 30th for a town meeting, or if we had an early special town meeting in FY21. And if you look at how they did it, all they really did is they took the 6/30/19 free cash certification, and in the general funds case, they said, okay, what did you vote out of free cash after that? Well, all we voted was $998,000 on June 29th. So the state said, gee, your 6/30/19 or your July 1/19 free cash certification, it's going to exist past June 30th, 2020 until you get your new free cash certification. But it's at a much lower number, 2.7 million. It's really kind of a belt and suspended number in case we need it. So my view was to give John Mangiarotti and the board the most flexibility, and in case something happened on June 29th, like there was a weather event, we needed to have some free cash just in case on July 1. Now, it's interesting to those in the group that say, okay, that's nice that the state lowered our free cash by what we used, but how about replenishments? Wow, that's a great question. The state, all they did was they said, we'll lower your prior number by what you used. They haven't added back in the 1.4 million in budget turn back. They haven't added in the $1,704 in local receipts excess. On the other side, there's also some statutory adjustments for grant deficits and changes in receivables. Grant deficits usually lower your free cash, but as the committee knows, we applied for and we were granted a $750,000 grant deficit waiver where we can run up to that amount into a deficit and it won't affect our free cash. So, you know, we did this as a preventative tool to allow reserves to be there for the community. Again, what's not in there are the budget turnbacks. You know, it's very interesting if you look at the bottom of the letter that I forwarded, the state in the letter says that this certification will expire upon the certification of free cash as of July 1/20. That's the state's way of saying, hey, this is just a temporary kind of preliminary number. Once we pull all your records together, this old certification expires. In terms of putting our records into the state, it involves the review of approximately $200 million in revenue and expense inputs and outputs. It involves literally 250 to 300 different funds. It involves a 3-page checklist with the Department of Revenue, which is followed up with a statement of cash. We routinely have $30 to $40 million on hand at any point in time. A statement of receivables, a statement of debt. This is really something that takes some time. We spent from July 15th till about September 1st reviewing the records prior to putting them into the Department of Revenue. We will have all records into DOR in September. There's, you know, obviously a few more things going on now with you know, these deficits and some other things. So we're scrubbing the records as the finance folks do. Again, we'll have certification in October. But to the $1 million question, or maybe the $4 million question, you know, I'm going to go back a screen. The goal is to replenish free cash and get it to stay at 3.7 million. Now, it's tough to have a plan for a calculation, but our plan is to try to get free cash back at 3.7 million. That would be really great for the town. And again, the plan is to see no deterioration in the free cash levels. Our enterprise funds perform well for FY20. So those preliminary certifications that were sent out today, you'll see much lower numbers than will actually come about. They were generated as kind of a belts and suspenders approach to flexibility with our reserves. And that is about it, what I have.
Sorry, my mouse keeps moving me to a different screen. Jason.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christy. I appreciate the update, Mr. Barrett. That's excellent. We definitely appreciate getting good hard numbers at the beginning of every meeting. So thank you for coming with that. I appreciate it. I do have one clarification, something that I think I must have misunderstood what you said. I believe you said that state aid was only 1.5% of our total budget, and you included in that the statement for Chapter 70. My read of the ALG spreadsheet is that if you take state aid to the municipality at about 1.4 million, and you take Chapter 70 aid to the school, the tune of about 2.1 million, and for the interest of making life easy for math, you take our total budget of about $100 million expenditure in a year. That's closer to 3% than 1.5. Did I misunderstand what you said about total state aid? Were you specifically talking about just the municipal side, or were you talking about total state aid as is what matters to the taxpayer, which is the unified tax bill that funds both the school district and the municipality?
Well, I did a good job in clouding that whole issue, Jason. So a little bit of both. On the ALG plan, the municipal funding sources is 1.4 million for the town's general fund piece. So that would be my 1.5% on the 104 million. So that's the commentary on the 1.5%. My commentary on the Chapter 70 was pretty much anecdotal that the A&F folks are saying that Chapter 70 is going to be level funded. That's outside of my wheelhouse, as you know.
And while I firmly believe and hope and trust that we as a state are going to be able to maintain that level funding promise, if we are truly doing a belt and suspenders approach, which is a phrase you used twice, if we're really doing a belt and suspenders approach, we should be looking at the total amount of data, a total amount of dollars that comes from the state as potentially being at risk. And while I don't think it's going to zero, I'm not that much of a chicken little. I don't believe it's going to zero, but at the same time, I think I look at the data point from Bureau of Labor Statistics that has the state of Massachusetts as the worst state in the nation for unemployment at 17.4%. And I ask if we are thoroughly confident that the state has enough in its rainy day fund or enough in its own incoming tax collection for us to have 100% confidence in level funding in municipal state aid and Chapter 70 state aid from the year before. So that's sort of question A. And the corollary question B to that is, given the state is at 17.4% unemployment, is there any data that we can get from the town? Obviously, I want this to be completely anonymous. I'm not looking to step on any privacy issues. But are we able to glean any information about what might be happening to the 2 zip codes in the town of Acton in particular to see if we're suffering a similar fate to that 17.4% unemployment rate that the Commonwealth as a whole is seeing? I don't know if you'd like to take those two questions, Mr. Barrett, or if somebody else would like to weigh in.
Well, let me see if I can get close. So yeah, the unemployment numbers are kind of staggering. As I spoke, we rely heavily on the property tax levy. In terms of state aid, the governor has signed a 3-month extension. They're confident in 3 months. Yet the A&F leadership comes out with a level funding comment. So I don't have a lens into the state. I would say, as you know, Jason, that tax returns will move from April 15th to July 15th. Much like our quarterly tax bills, it's going to take them a little bit of time to process that. So we'll see where that goes. But I do understand what you're saying about the unemployment. I think that our citizens, I think they're going to carry the day, but I think they're going to, we're going to have some turbulence along the way. So I don't have a lens into the state aid exactly if it's going to be 100%. But I think you're right. A high unemployment rate doesn't help. And I probably didn't answer your question, but these might not have answers right now.
If I may, Madam Chair, just a real quick follow-up, and it'll take, you don't need to give a long answer. If we're anticipating approximately $3.5 million in blended state aid between Chapter 70 and municipal state aid, if we're truly taking a conservative approach, how many $100,000 would you want to hold in moderate risk in case the Commonwealth is unable to meet its stated goal. Are you 100, 200, 500?
Well, that's a great question. Well, let me put it to you a different way, but it'll answer your question. If you looked at, and again, I'd have to go back and pull some data, but if you looked at a dire result of, say, a 10% cut, 20% cut, choose the number. But if you said, okay, 20% of 3.5 million is $700,000, how are you going to handle that? Well, if you take a page out of 2008, 2009, the way the state accounting rules work, as long as we have a budget turnback equal to the revenue deficit, the books are balanced. But that's a great question. And, I think that's what the board and John Mangiarotti, we're waiting to see. But right now, again, the state's saying, kind of a quarter at a time, we're good. But to your point, I do think that given the power of the bottom line budget, that the town manager and the board can force a large turnback to cover a revenue problem.
Fair enough. It's unfortunate that this state is only doing 3 months out and we're doing 12 months out, which makes our task a little bit harder. But again, I appreciate you coming with hard numbers at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Sahana.
Just to continue the conversation that Jason brought up, that the unemployment rate is at 17.4%. Is that because we opened up late? We were one of the last states to open up. Maybe we might see the numbers going down. This was, I think, in July, right? This past
The very last week of July. It's a BLS number as of July 27th.
Okay.
Mike.
Yeah, I was just watching the governor's press conference today, and he seemed to be indicating that it's comfortable that they're hitting all their budget targets. Like, sort of pleasantly surprised. They're not terrific, but they're not bad. They said, I guess to use the term, the numbers are coming in as expected. So I'm assuming they're hitting their budget numbers so far.
That is wonderful news. Stephen, did you want to ask Mr. Barrett about cash flow? I'll take that as a no.
No, I would just say that I don't know what budget numbers we're hitting, but the state was, before all this started, the state had about a $3 billion or something hole in their budget. So yeah, I'm sure they've downscaled their expectations and are hitting those now, but I don't know that translates into a rosy scenario. And I'd be a little concerned about anybody saying everything's okay right now at the state level.
Now, partially to Jason's point, my understanding is that any decrease in Chapter 78 for the schools has a good chance of being filled in by the federal government, which we wouldn't be looking at similarly for the town. And decrease in town state aid would not be presumably matched by the federal government.
It depends what federal government we have.
Good point. There also is some hope from the school side that our return to a hybrid model for some students will allow the schools to qualify, the district to qualify for federal money as opposed to be threatened. If you're not booked back full time, you don't get anything. Any other questions for Steve Barrett? All right, John Denson, could you speak to the upcoming special town meeting and anything else regarding that?
Yeah, we set the meeting last night for Tuesday, September 8th. That's the day after Labor Day. We will follow the same model for the June 29th annual town meeting, which was the hybrid model There'll be an indoor seating in the field house and an outdoor seating in the parking lot. The same crew that put together the June meeting will do the September meeting. School doesn't start until September 14. So if there's any, weather problems, we could go Wednesday or Thursday night. You people received the draft warrant. We have 4 now discussion articles. We voted to include the small business grant program. We're getting that article formally written up now. And there's 4 consent articles all set out in the warrant. There will likely be a non-binding citizen petition on a climate change article. That should be in this week. We closed the warrant as of this coming Friday noon to the citizen articles. We don't anticipate any more beyond the climate article. So that's where we are.
If it's good for everyone, I would like to take this moment to assign warrant articles. Let me back up a second. The recommendations need to be in by August 24th, which means that we need to have another meeting before then in order to have a chance to research and discuss and then vote on our recommendations for the warrant. I would like to propose that we meet next Tuesday. Is that good or not? Christine is a thumbs up. Jason, thumbs up. Roland, Dave. Sahana, was that a quick thumbs up? Mike says yes. Steve says yes. All right, we will meet at 7 p.m. on August 18th, at which point we will vote on the warrant articles. Now, it's the fun time when we talk about article assignments. Let me bring up here the list of all of them. I suspect this is a popular one, but who would like the right to speak to the land acquisition article? No one wants it?
Adam said he'd take it.
I would happily give that to Adam then.
That's what he gets for not showing up to the meeting.
He sent me a list of what he was interested in. Okay, what about amending the town charter for the title of chief executive?
I can
I'll
take
take that
that.
Would you like it, Sana?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is authorizing the payment in lieu of taxes for the Acton Water District. Don't make me pick. Thank you, Steve.
These are just also thrilling.
Yeah, I know. Okay, a small business grant program, Article 4.
Madam Chair, I would like to take that one if I may, please.
Certainly. Then Article 5, accepting legislation on the statutory speed limits. Christine. I'm sorry, I have to figure out how to write these all down at the same time.
I'll write the rest of them down, Christy, and send it to you.
Thank you. We're up to Article 6, accepting legislation on the Saturday office hours. Roland. Sorry, Mike, you're off on the side. I don't see you as quickly. Release of restriction for 127 Strawberry Hill Road. You don't want that one, Mike?
His
Adam said
dog
he'd take that
does.
one too.
The dog clearly wants that one.
Okay, Mike says yes. And then finally, amending the zoning bylaw, housekeeping corrections, and the personal wireless facility. Someone had this last time around. This is one that was postponed.
I had it last time around. If you want me to take it again, I'd be happy to do so.
Certainly. It's on the consent agenda. I think it's mostly just reminding us what it's about at our next meeting. All right, Christine, do you have that list? Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is the ALG update. We had our first ALG meeting of the season. Christine got to meet everyone and we got an update What I was reminded of is that it is not possible to have a short ALG meeting. I was hoping that we could just get a quick update to find out what's up with the schools in the town, given that everyone is extremely busy right now, and it was still an hour and a half meeting. Gonna skip through some of this because Steve just presented it to us. Regarding fiscal year 20, the school is in the process right now of closing the books. They're looking at approximately $700,000 in turnbacks that they expect. Big thing they want to point out is some of the revolving funds took a huge hit. Specifically, the school lunch fund. I'm getting confirmation from Marie on this. They've been feeding people who are not just students out of that when they do you can come and pick up food. Some of those numbers are not reimbursable. I mean, they only get reimbursement from the students. So that fund has taken a big hit. Something to think about, whether there's a way the town could be using some of our CARES money or something to help fund towards that. Community ed also took a big hit because they had their staff to pay but no classes, and similarly with athletics. So Marie recommends that we keep an eye on the revolving funds specifically to understand where the budget really is, because these are some places that these losses are hidden when you look at the overall numbers. The funds were able to cover it, but they're getting really low. In fiscal year 21, Steve Barrett, please confirm this for me or help me clarify this. The departments we're told can still have a hiring freeze except for public safety. Am I correct on that?
True.
Thank you. The schools say the cost have increased significantly, especially technology for students, which is understandable given that they're supplying computers and iPads to the students. That is CARES reimbursable, those expenses. They also have the benefit of being of ongoing value. It's not a one-time use it and then throw it out kind of thing. There is a chance that the schools will ask the town to use some of the town's CARES money to reimburse it if there isn't any federal reimbursement. They're expecting federal reimbursement. Their plan is to exhaust all of their grants and other money they can access before coming to the town, but there is some feeling out for whether the town would be comfortable with using some of the town specifically allocated CARES money to this. So something to keep in mind for further discussions in the future. The other big hit for the increase in cost for the school is that there's no all-day K revenue this year because all-day K is not happening. As you probably noticed if you took a look at the ALG spreadsheet that Steve sent us, it hasn't particularly been updated with the new numbers. There are not expectations going forward for next year, except for the glaring, frightening numbers for Minuteman that are in there, which has a $1 million increase coming in the next 2 years. I have invited Pam Norris to come speak to us about this. She is happy to do that. We just have to get a date settled down. The general idea is that we've got a significantly more students going this year, so they've upped our 5-year rolling enrollment expectation. Yes, Jason?
I'd also like to add on the ALG spreadsheet, I find it highly suspicious that the meals tax is being held constant for this current year and for next year, when respectfully, that's a laughable assumption.
I would not at this point count that as an assumption, but Steve can clarify that if he wants to.
It's in the spreadsheet as level
Yes.
funded.
What I said before is the spreadsheet hasn't been updated.
Very well.
That was all I was going to add, Madam Chair. We have not as a group reviewed any of the numbers on the spreadsheet.
Yeah. It was just giving us something to start with in our ALG discussions. So yes, for Minuteman, there are 20 new freshmen coming in, as opposed to the current 32 sophomores through seniors that are there right now. So we have a significant jump up in attendance, which explains the increase in assessment. We also want to just discuss with Pam what sort of pushback, if any, the town has to the school committee and the district school committee in their budgeting. Yes, Mike?
Yeah, just one other factor is that the district is now smaller and we have more kids going in. So it's like we now have a bigger piece of the pie, that expense pie that we're obligated.
Yes.
And with very little or no out-of-district students for the foreseeable future.
Unfortunately, for the level increase we're looking at, we do need to just keep an eye on it and understand where it's coming from and how much we want to continue supporting it. Jason, I assume you will speak in the liaison reports later to the school building updates.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. We don't have anyone on fire station, I don't think. So I'll cover that quickly. The bids are in and they were actually on budget for what we expected. The lowest bidder has worked with the project manager before and the project manager had nothing but good things to say about them. So we are well on track for that. Speaking about the schools in the town, the budget process is actually, the fiscal year 22 budget process is on target to be occurring as its normal time, which is they start in the fall. We will get preliminary budgets in December and January and work forward from there. So there is no change to that general timeline that we have. The next ALG meeting is on September 24th. It might seem a little late, but that gives the schools time to have opened up and give us a report on how things are going. They'll have gotten a little bit into their budgeting process with the schools in the town at that point in time. That is it for ALG. Any questions? All right. Now, point of view. I'm sure I very optimistically asked people to start thinking about what information we want to include in the point of view. I think we have a chance right now with this way things have changed in many ways to take a step back and look at the information we think should be in there rather than continuing to update what's in the presentation every year. So would love to hear what people think the information is that we should have in there. And I believe Christine said she would take notes on this for us. Anyone? Roland. That's not you raising your hand. Sahana.
So, just give me a second. Do we want to go through the point of view document? Do you want to put it up on the screen so we can go through the slides, or?
I would actually like to first just go through the basic ideas, what comes to people's mind about what should be in there without us being tied into what we've previously talked about.
Okay, then I'll
Sometimes,
just wait.
sometimes you get new ideas being separate from that.
Okay,
go
I'll
ahead.
wait.
No, go ahead. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Jason?
I would like us to redouble our efforts on, and I'm cautious to say this, I'm not asking for a full comparable town study. I realize that is a ton of work, and that's not something we're going to get done, especially with a special town meeting in less than a month. But I would love for us to be able to get a little more insight into some of the higher level statistics. For example, I've already asked, if the Commonwealth is running at 17.4% unemployment, is there a way for us to have any visibility into what the delta in unemployment for the taxpayers is? I would like us to review the ranking of tax burden. I believe we consistently come in 16th out of 351. Are we still 16th in the level of tax burden? And continue what we have started in the past, continue to track sort of those 3 or 4 towns that we are most interested in comparing ourselves to with regard to total tax burden versus median income. So I would like for us to flesh that out as much as we can moving forward so that we are able to better explain where we are in taxation and why.
All right.
Does that make sense?
It does to me.
Thank you.
Now, what do we think needs to be specifically included at this point in time, this economy that we're in right now relative to town finances for people? It's different than usual. Mike, please.
Yeah, I think considering we're kind of in extraordinary times, and getting back to Jason's tax burden question, if somehow we could make assumptions that the tax bill that the average homeowner gets would be flat this year.
So you specifically wanted that as a recommendation?
Yeah, that there will be no increase in the tax burden for at least for 1 year, the short term. Since we are monitoring our expenses and everything else, and people in general have, are watching their pocketbooks as well, and not doing a lot of unnecessary spending. It's harder to control expenses, especially if you don't know, that you're going to have a constant revenue stream. I think targeting a flat tax rate would be not a bad idea.
Right, Steve?
Yeah, if you go back to when we started doing the point of view years ago, it was in uncertain economic times. And we used to spend a great deal of ink on economic metrics, situations, local. Yeah, I remember actually, having one that actually talked to the town unemployment rate. So I think this time around, maybe it's a good idea to go back to some of that kind of analysis. We have some in there now, and maybe we need some more. The other thing is, I think we need to maybe, somewhat to Mike's point, it would be good if we could hold our tax rate flat, but we also have to get back to maybe doing projections out a few years. We've kind of let that one slide a bit. And in different times, we didn't give one set of numbers. We gave kind of a best case, worst case, most likely case for the next 5 years. That may be something we want to start thinking about. Because now is not the time to raise taxes if we can possibly avoid it. But if we don't, the 2.5%, is about $2 million every year. So if we don't do it, then we have to figure out where it's coming from and when we catch up.
Christine?
Hey, Steve, do you happen to have copies of those old POVs or know where I might be able to get my hands on them?
That's a good question.
I can give you the last 5 years if it's
I'm talking way back.
I want 2007, 2008.
Yeah. The good news is, I think in many cases our warrant message contained a lot of that stuff as well. But let me see how far back I can go.
Okay, maybe a deep email search to see if that was shared with you at some point down the line. I'd love old copies if you get them. Please forward them on.
Thank you. Dave, anything?
I like the format, and I know we've talked about it in a lot of details, and we've gone through a lot of iterations of it over the last couple of years. I understand we're in extraordinary times, and we want to, be cognizant of that. But I also like having it be standardized and consistent, so that there's a relatively straightforward message that comes through every year, and so that the audience doesn't, and I'm not suggesting this is where we're going, but the audience doesn't think that we're whipsawing around in different directions. And I'd like it to be, we've talked about, in general, the tax raises and how we have to be cognizant of Prop 2.5 and limitations that are out there, and to be aware that salary increases are the giant driver of this. So I just a high level observation is I like the idea of generally keeping the format similar and consistent. And I don't think we should get too off message, is just my view, because we don't really know what the next 6 to 12 months will look like, nor the next 2 to 3 years. But I do like we fleshed it out over years, and even the last year or two we spent a lot of time going through it, and people may be settling into the idea of us having a consistent message. I don't think we want to disrupt that, because while it's front of mind for all of us, it may be not the most important thing in front of other parties that are actually digesting this information. And then, just a different view on the tax is I certainly would agree keeping taxes flat, but I think we have to really vet those suggestions before we put them forward. And I know we're going to do that, but as you are obviously talking about flat salary increases for 70-80% of the budget, and how does that read teachers who may be stressed out or dealing with anxiety of going back to school, what have you. I'm not taking a position. All I'm suggesting is that I think we want to be thoughtful in that approach and how we think about those things. I personally would like a level tax increase year over year. I think most taxpayers would, but obviously, as Steve pointed out, there's trade-offs to that. So we just want to be a little deliberate, I think, in that. But my bigger message is just the consistency of the message that the POV delivers to its audience. And I do think, and I'll just say this on a side note, after being on the committee a number of years now, I think the audience has gotten bigger for our assessments and our opinions, and that's a wonderful thing. And this is just in line with keeping with the spirit of that is my opinion. So, and I'm certainly willing to debate any individual slide, and we've done that a lot. So just continue with that.
Thank you, Dave. I agree with you entirely. I just want to make sure by not just staring at the individual document that we're not missing some other ideas we would like to bring in.
I do want to respect the fact that we're in a pandemic, but as Mr. Barrett has pointed out, and we've talked about a number of times, that the tax base is relatively stable. And we've talked about this a lot. I think we just want to be thoughtful in whatever sort of conclusions we come to in that regard. As if we think we want to try to hold taxes flat or what have you, I think there's just a number of different parts to that. So, anyways, I'm creating a stir, so I'll quiet down.
Jason, Sahana, and then Roland.
I just wanted to agree with Dave. I'm all for us tightening our belt as much as we can because of the unknowns that we can't handle, but the known unknowns that could still bite us. But and Mr. Majors, I absolutely agree with you. Let's keep taxes down as much as possible. But I believe we're going to have a very hard time doing that with a very fresh teachers union contract that it's only at the end of the first year. So the next two years of teachers union contract is already baked in, unless they choose to, out of order, decide to take some kind of cut. And I believe we also just inked a police union contract at the last town meeting as well. So
hold on, Jason. I'm going to stop you there. These are very good points. I would like to discuss the topics, the details of the topics another time, and right now just try to get a list of what we want to have for the point of view. Sahana, just.
I just want to again, say the same things about the tax rate. With the situation right now, I don't think that the average family income is going to increase in the near future. It might as well, we might be looking at a decrease or kind of holding the same. So
okay, one second. I would love to talk about this next week when we get into actually delving into the details of the point of view. Right now, I just want to cover we have a lot to do still. I'd like to right now just cover what are the elements we think need to have in there. Does that fit with what you want to say, Roland? Are you creating a topic or discussing, deliberating?
I'm good. I'm just been turning off my video because the audio something clearer.
All right. One thing that I would like to make sure we have in our discussion is our current state of reserves seems rather high. So let's have a specific discussion around that. Christine?
So format-wise, I think that for this year, we should have a print version of the point of view, and then we should consider a videoed version in which we speak to a slide presentation so that we have a couple ways to share this, because we're not going to be getting in front of audiences the way we typically do. We may be able to present at 1 or 2 meetings, but also having something that somebody could download on YouTube or whatever and watch. So that might, so we might end up with 2 versions in the end, one with a lot more words on it, and the other one with, as few words as possible.
You did a great job of that last year. I nominate you. Thank you very much.
Roland, did you have something to add?
I think we need to visit our floor and ceiling recommendations when we go through it. I know last year we said the town, don't raise by more than 3% or something. I guess more like 2.5%. So I think we should revisit that and take a little deeper dive into that understanding. What's appropriate during this economic pandemic that we're in? And, I think that when you're looking at receipts and taxes, we gotta maybe make a kind of a footnote that we feel like it would be economic factors like that. You're on that side tax, but I think it's dropped further down. People not at all behind. It would be difficult. Because
Roland, it's really hard to hear you right now.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mike?
On mute.
Yeah.
In light of this goal to sort of really keep a lid on our tax rate, which is probably easier said than done, as we all know. Maybe one of the things we could incorporate is sort of a list of priorities. Maybe have a priority list of things that we monitor. Like these are the most important and have the biggest impact on their budget, starting with the highest down to the lowest, or vice versa. But
We do some of that already with the OPEB and talking about keeping salaries in check. Are there other areas you would like to add to that?
well, just expand that to almost everything. It would rank every big bucket as give it a scale of 1 to 10, so that some things with a higher priority we might be able to adjust more, or we might not be able to adjust as well as some things that have a lower priority. Just rank them.
Could you write up a little more in an email for what you're thinking about that? Thank you. Jason?
Corollary to what he just said, we've been asking for years from the Board of Selectmen a full ranking of the capital improvements. We've gotten some information from them. I think not only sort of being a sanity check on the capital improvement list that the town provides, I would also like for us to take the list of priorities from the Board of Selectmen, the short-term priorities from the Board of Selectmen, and sort of give, I'm not asking for a monetary value, but sort of give a, cold, lukewarm, or hot agreement on the list of priorities from the Board of Selectmen, so that we can be in lockstep with them, or we can give them advice on the things that we disagree with them about their priorities.
All right. So Hannah, you had mentioned having some ideas about the previous point of view. Would you like to share those now?
Are we going to discuss about it next week? I can wait.
I think, I wanted to discuss the details next week, but if there are overall subjects in there that you think would be helpful to have people think about more specifically, or just we can do it all next week.
I was just thinking that since we're talking about tax burdens, I think we need to revisit some of the charts that we have created, because some of them will really not hold true for the coming couple of years, given the situation that we are in. So we do need fresh numbers and a fresh graph out there.
Now, having tried to find some of these numbers, I know how much work it is. Christine, do you want to ask anyone else to do some of that research?
How about if I take a stab at it and see if I get stuck or held up, and then I'll reach out, if I need a hand.
Sounds good to me. I think that we have covered everything I had on my list of ideas for. One thought I had was whether we would want to break out in discussing the slide we have where we discuss the median income, et cetera, for people working in the town, whether we would want to divide that out some to also talk about the retirees, just making some assumption on how pensions have done or other 401ks, stock market, other things that might be indicative of a change in retiree income in order to help people understand. The median household of people who work is at this level, and the median household of people living off of retirement savings has had some other sort of hit. Just an idea to throw out there. Okay, that's it. We have a bajillion set of meeting minutes to approve tonight. Let me bring that up for myself. I'm assuming everyone has had a chance to read them already. Would anyone like to take a second to refresh their memories on any of this? I'm bringing up my list. I don't know if my list here is exactly in order. If you're are okay with it going potentially not out of order, I'm happy to tell you which one we're talking about and hear a motion on. Yes, Christine?
Can we make a motion to approve them as a block?
That's a great question. Does anyone know?
I feel like I've seen it in other meetings.
Hearing a lack of approval of that, Mike?
We do, if
You
it might
do?
help. Yeah, we put all our minutes on a consent calendar, and they're all approved under one item.
Yeah, just list all the dates of the meeting so that it goes into the record. These are the ones that we're approving.
Okay, if someone has access to the list explicitly, that would be helpful. I have to open each Word file to see what the date is for. I can do that.
All right, move to approve the Finance Committee meeting minutes of April 15th, 2020. All right, I was so close, and then I had to switch screens, and then it lost my mute, and then it moved into full screen, and so I withdraw my motion for the moment.
Jason?
Move that we approve the meeting minutes from the meetings of April 15th, 2020, May 6th, 2020, May 20th, 2020, May 28th, 2020, June 3rd, 2020, June 24th, 2020, and June 29th, 2020, as amended in email form by Christine Russell to Brian McMullen in previous emails.
Second.
All right, let's do a vote. Sahana?
Aye.
Mike?
Yes.
Christine?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Roland?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And Christy, I also say aye. It passes unanimously. Wonderful. Does anyone have any liaison reports to deliver? Jason?
Yes, as you alluded to earlier, Madam Chair, there is an update for the school building committee for the Gates and Douglas School. This is truly a case of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but I would like to emphasize the 2 steps forward. Bid package number 2, which has to do specifically with concrete, steel, and other external site work, came in under budget or under expectation to the tune of approximately $2 million, which is very good news. We were told that the reasons for this are that the contractors are hungry to book guaranteed work as things open back up. That there was quite a bit of consternation among the committee that COVID would actually come with an extra surcharge, extra cost to do these projects. But apparently the desire on the contractors to have guaranteed work and know that they're going to be able to put the people to work over the next couple of months carried the day. So that bid package came in to the better of about $2 million. That's the 2 steps forward. The 1 step back is that when we started to do the septic system, unfortunately, we did run across ledge. Ledge, as I'm sure Mr. Majors can attest to, is the worst possible word that you can hear when doing a school building project. Now, the good news is the ledge was in limited areas, and we were able to reconfigure and rejigger the placement of the septic field. Unfortunately, that reconfiguration did require a rerouting of the bus circuit, including during active months of September, October, potentially even November. So, and while there is something to be said for the fact that only half the population is going back to the Gates building, that doesn't change the fact that did have a deleterious effect to our budget to the tune of approximately $1 million. There is hope that there is some significant portion, maybe potentially even 20% of that $1 million, that is actually money that is being pulled in from other work and will result in savings later, but that's not necessarily a bird in hand. So being careful about it, we have $2 million to the good side for concrete, and we've got $1 million to the bad side for ledge and septic system. Moral of the story, it is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We have a workaround. There is going to be a very interesting bus pattern for at least 6 weeks, if not 2 months, maybe 10 weeks, we'll see, of the bus pattern. But the septic system did get approved by the health department, health board, and we're moving forward. And hopefully there is some savings to be recouped as a result of ledge. But God willing, this is the end of the ledge problems that we have. Meanwhile, the drilling for the geothermal wells has started. They did warn us that if you go and take a look at the site right now, and if you come and do time-lapse photography on this site, you're going to feel like it's a whole lot of dirt being pushed around, and that the early phases of any building project, most things are underground and don't have beautiful progress for you to look at. But progress is being made, and things are progressing at a reasonable clip. We are getting timely updates from the builder, Consigli. And by the way, everyone is welcome to sign up to get those weekly updates about what's going on in the proceeding next 2 weeks, so that everyone can stay abreast of the progress that's being made. And that's off of the school website. Christine, do you have a question? Did I miss something?
Christine?
Madam Chair, may I ask Christine?
Yes.
Just interestingly enough, also, about 45% of Gates families have chosen to go remote. So convenient that the school actually won't even be needing the modulars that they originally ordered, but not that they're getting rid of them.
They need them,
They need them. They just don't need them right away.
They will be in place in time.
There was even at one point some talk of potentially not using Gates this year, but it doesn't save us anything as far as the building project or students go. It is kind of interesting that almost half of the families are using remote, which is not the same across every elementary school.
That is true. I believe there's one other elementary school that has a greater than 40% remote percentage. That said, due to the constraints of social distancing, trying to collapse the schools down into Douglas is not feasible. And we absolutely want to take advantage of the fact that the current Gates school will not have as many people in it as possible. We're also thankful that potentially traffic in the area is going to be lessened by the fact that less than half of the normal student population will be arriving during the construction period.
Thank you, Jason. Any other reports? Sahana, was that your hand?
Christine can go first because John Benson already sent out the BS reports, but
Christine?
Just that the school committee met really quickly last Wednesday and voted to push the start date back for the schools to September 14th. This allows for 10 days of teacher training and preparedness as granted by the governor. And oh shoot, I had one other thing and I misplaced it. Minuteman has changed its recommendation from half the kids going to on site and half out to a quarter of the children on site, 3/4 out. So 1 week out of every month, freshmen will be in, the following week sophomores, the following week juniors, and the following week seniors.
Sahana?
do you want me to go through the report for the meeting? Because I know Selectman Benson already sent out his report and that they were very thorough and,
We'd love your spin on it.
Okay. So, so this is what Mr. Benson reported from the ZBA. The ZBA unanimously approved the powder mill development. There are about 230 rental units, which would bring the town over the 10% 40B threshold. And the other is the Grandview project, which is off Route 2. And this is a 32 ownership units, includes 24 1 and 2 bedroom units and 8 affordable units. And we already discussed the ALG updates. He also had an update on the dog park. It's in one of their short-term goals, and the 4 abutters were not very happy with the current proposed site on Isaac Davis Way. So after having talked with them, he said that they might revisit the Quarry Road site near Nara and also look at the Morrison Farm site. So more discussions on the dog park site. The town manager updated the town window hours are from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And then a little update on early voting is on August 22nd and 23rd from 9 to 1 p.m. And from 24th through the 28th, it's going to be 8:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. And the early voting is at Town Hall. So all residents should have received the mail in, voting by mail. The ballots should have already gone home by now. So if you haven't, you have to contact the town clerk. The North Acton Fire Station was discussed earlier, so that's moving forward and will be breaking ground soon. The town manager also said that even though there's been a hiring freeze, given the current financial situation and the report from so he's actually looking into case by case for hiring some of the positions that he wants to fill in. And we already discussed about the special town meeting, so I'm just going to skip that. So one of the things that was interesting to hear was with the special town meeting, what happens with the new governor's order that we cannot have more than 50 people outdoor gathering. So that I was told that it really does not hold true for the town legislative body. We are exempted from that rule by the state. So that's the reason that we can go ahead with the special town meeting, and we discussed about all of the other town meeting articles. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Unless I missed something, John.
Mr. Benson, did you miss anything?
think we covered the bases. Yeah, we got that out early this morning. I just had a question for your meeting next week. You would like warrant article presentations on which articles? Dean is prepared to come in on Piper. I'm prepared to come in on the small business grant program. Jim Snyder Grant will present on the pilot agreement with the water district for their solar panels. Do you want Jim in too?
I would love that.
Okay, so those three. Do you need David Martin to present on name change?
I don't think so, unless anyone feels strongly.
Okay, so it'll be the three of us then next week then. Okay.
Wonderful. Jason?
Mr. Benson, if I may impose upon you, please get us the language of Article 4, the small business grant, as soon as possible. I know you said that it's I know you said it's in the hands of town council, but right now there's no verbiage to look at. So the sooner the better, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it just didn't go on until last night.
Fair enough.
All right. Does anyone have anything else for committee business to discuss, report on? Dave?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we formally rename the special town meeting to the semi-annual town meeting.
Second.
I'm just kidding. I retract that
Shit,
motion.
now we have to vote on it.
I make a motion to adjourn instead.
Roll call.
I didn't hear Dave say anything about renaming any meetings, so I would like to hear a second on the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wonderful. Okay, Sahana,
Aye.
Mike,
Yes.
Christine,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and Christy, I say aye. Thank you. Good night, everyone. See you next